Everyone knows that question, do I have Asperger's or autism? And, is there really a difference? Well, I'm going to explain all about that in this video coming up. Hey guys, welcome back to the Aspie world. My name is Dan. I have autism, ADHD, OCD and dyslexia, and I make weekly videos on this type of content. So if you're new around here and you want to learn more, remember to hit that subscribe button by clicking the notification bell so you don't miss a video. And also, if you're watching over on Facebook, be sure to give this page a like and a follow to see daily videos. Hey, this video is proudly sponsored by Soundsory headphones. Now, these are the headphones. They're absolutely amazing. It's a multi-sensory home-based program that is used for cognitive and motor skill development. It has patented dynamic filters which help to create specific sound contrasts to give a full workout for the brain, using bone conduction to help in faster transmission of sound. Soundsory helps with auditory and sensory processing by training the brain to process sensory information quickly and more accurately, and it improves balance and movement and coordination through the exercise program. And basically how it works is that you use the thing for 30 minutes each day for 40 days. That's the length of the program, and then you get crazy good results. There's also different settings. So basically, when you've got it on, you use it for listening to music for the first part, and then at the end of it you listen to music and then do exercises for the second part, which I'm demonstrating in this kind of clip here. The sound sensory is being used by children and adults on the autism spectrum and with ADHD and sensory processing disorder and with motor delays, so it's kind of a good one for everybody all around. This is an amazing device that you can use for home-based therapy and learning sessions. I mean, that's super cool, right? I've used this now, and I was using it for the past weekend, and it's crazy good. The music has this interesting impulse, which is it heightens in certain areas where it's kind of more sensory stimulating, which is very, very interesting. At first I was like, whoa, what the heck's going on? But then when I was using it more, it actually was pretty cool. And another thing I noticed about this, these are great for noise cancelling. They're so cushioned and so well made that they actually block out a lot of noise, which is really cool. So I didn't have to I could actually use these as ear protectors if noises are getting too much for me, which is kind of cool. The comfort level on these are amazing, and also something I've noticed as well is there's a little switch here on the side. You can go from using the therapy sessions to just switching to Bluetooth, and then you get yourself a pair of Bluetooth headphones you can actually use to answer that iPhone with, which I actually did do, which was pretty amazing. Another thing is kind of cool is that when you're listening to the rhythmic music, you can kind of do other things. You could actually do a puzzle, or you could do walking about the house, or do something else, drawing, dancing, walking, whatever it is that you want to do. You can do that whilst listening to those music pieces, and then in the second part you can then do your exercises while listening to the music. If you want to check out Soundsory, please check out the link in the description below. Also, you can use my discount code to get 10% off your purchase if you decide to get it, but I highly recommend checking it out. Okay, on with the video. It's good to be back. Good to be back making videos. So today, because it's World Autism Awareness Week 2020, which is crazy, snuck up on us crazy, because I mean, we've all been worried about this whole virus stuff going on. Everything else was just kind of just snuck up on us. So saying that, this video is all about Aspergers Syndrome or autism, and the difference, or how we see the difference. I'm going to clear all that up right now. So I have a question for everybody out there who is watching this video. Are you on the autism spectrum, or are you learning about it for something else? Could be your job or a degree or something. Let me know in the comment section down below. I'd love to have that conversation with you. I read and respond to every single comment, so do that and let's open that conversation. Okay, so guys, there's a huge barrier between dialogue, language and terminology used within the autism community, and it's had some changes and some bumps in the road and some ups and downs and all that kind of jazz. Now, I will say this just as a disclaimer, my actual diagnosis was Aspergers Syndrome, which was the diagnosis I had, but it since has changed its name, and I'll get into all that right now. So autism is a spectrum condition that is a condition that now impacts the lives of 1 in 100 people in the United Kingdom and 1 in 60 in the United States, and that basically means that that's 1 in 100 who actually have the condition and 1 in 60 who have the condition in the United States. Now, autism is an interesting spectrum because it is a spectrum. It's vast. It has different support needs. There's some people with high support needs, some people with low support needs, and these needs come in different variants, and this is where you get the spectrum. There's some people who can do things that other people can't do, and vice versa. So that's where you get the idea of an autism spectrum. Now, up until 2013, the DSM way of diagnosing people, which is like a manual put out by the American Medical Institution of Psychotherapies and things like that. They put out a manual called the DSM, and the 5th edition, or the fifth edit to it, which is the DSM-5 in 2013, they actually retracted the term Asperger syndrome because there was different terms. You could diagnose people with like autism, classic autism, high functioning autism, Asperger syndrome, and these are all bizarre terms that were almost they were making it difficult for other people to access things. So basically, if someone who had low support needs for had an Asperger's diagnosis but had low support needs, but still on the autism spectrum, so they still needed access to help and support, but not in the needs of someone who was bracketed as a classic autistic. That was very confusing because then the authorities and the local governments and the national kind of view on it was like, well, these people can do stuff, so why should we give them access to support, even though they did need that support? So in combating this issue where you had people of high and low support needs still needing access to support, still needing access to help and services, they changed and they rejigged the whole thing to create the Autism Spectrum Disorder diagnosis, which is what it currently is. Now, I was among the last bunch of people in the UK to have the Asperger's diagnosis nomenclature, when it was actually a term back in 2013 before they changed it to on the DSM, and now it's just ASD, which is Autism Spectrum Disorder. Now, a lot of people also have issues that maybe they feel that the term ASD is not really a disorder, it's a condition, it's a neurological condition, so they think like ASC, like Autism Spectrum Condition, maybe a better term, and I kind of agree a little bit, maybe that is a better term. That being said though, I don't have any prejudice against anybody who wants to use the term Asperger syndrome or autism or whatever, because it's each down to their own, and it's how they identify as a person and who they are, I guess. So there's a lot of different people. Obviously, when I started this channel, Aspie is short for Asperger's, and so I just I put it up the Aspie world because that's what my diagnosis was back in 2013. But that being said, we shouldn't really put anybody down for using those terms. We just need to know if those terms are still being used or why those terms were used. So when people would say, do you have autism and Asperger syndrome? Well, autism is Asperger syndrome and Asperger syndrome is autism. They're one and the same thing. They're interchangeable. There's no difference there. It was just a terminology for the level of support that you needed, judged on the abilities and the inabilities that you had around your diagnosis. But a lot of people still can be diagnosed with the term Asperger syndrome. So not every single center for assessing and diagnosing autism actually use the DSM. It's kind of like the industry standard, but not everybody does use it. There are still some clinics that will still diagnose people with old systems, like coming with terms like Asperger syndrome, and that's okay, I guess. They're still having access to support because Asperger syndrome is kept within that kind of bracket of saying that these people are autistic and they do need access to the support because of the change from the DSM to having an autism spectrum. So we have this big spectrum, and that was all encompassing because it safeguards everybody who has that diagnosis so they cannot be left out from getting support. And that was the main thing. That was like the biggest thing. People were, having an issue and they couldn't access support. They weren't able to get the right support needs that they needed for their specific needs at that time. But saying that, there is a bunch of different things going on right now. I did a briefing with the European Parliament talking about how autism and support in the EU really needed to up its game because there's not an awful lot of support for people on the autism spectrum, especially in working environments and things like that, where there's discriminatory, people won't hire you because you're on the autism spectrum. But on the flip side, there are some companies who are hiring people who are on the autism spectrum and they're looking for those specifically because of their awesome, talented skills that they do have, which is, what I might add, an amazing gift that people on the autism spectrum have, an ability to focus on something that they really enjoy or really get into, and they become almost experts on those things, which is absolutely amazing. So when you ask that question, do I have Asperger's or autism? Well, you do. You have both. It is both, and it's not you are autistic, or you are Aspergic. It's the same thing. There is no real difference. So people don't really use the term Asperger's anymore, but you will find a short number of people who still probably do use the term Asperger's. It's not something that is like an official diagnostic term anymore, but people still will refer to it. And some people who were before 2013 who were diagnosed with Asperger syndrome may still just refer to them saying like, oh, I have Asperger syndrome, when they have a condition. So they might come into your clinic or your school or your home or your friend or whatever, and they'll say, hey, oh yeah, by the way, I'm on the spectrum, I have Asperger syndrome. And that's cool too, because they might just refer to it because that was what the diagnostic paper says, And so that is kind of like how the word is still being used, because it was still in a generation of people who were diagnosed with that condition of that nomenclature back then. I personally, I just say autistic. I'm on the autism spectrum. I just say I'm on the spectrum when I'm addressing people who ask like, oh, how come you're doing that in a certain manner? Or whatever, I say, oh, I'm on the spectrum. So saying I'm on the spectrum kind of covers the whole thing. You don't have to say like, oh, I'm autistic, or I have autism spectrum disorder diagnosis. You know, you don't have to say stuff like that. But you can do if you want to. I'm just saying that these are just options that you can have wherever you know you want to, really. But that being said, there are fantastic resources out there for people who are on the autism spectrum. And if you're coming to this video to try and find out if you are on the autism spectrum and you're looking for information, I actually did a video on how you can test at home to see, you know, how likely you are to be on the autism spectrum. I will leave a link for that above here and down below in the description, so that you guys can, you know, go on your leisure and do that. But also check out the awesome sponsor for this video. I found it very, very useful and very awesome, and I just love doing these videos. So this is World Autism Awareness Week. This video went out to you guys to be just super informative and awesome. I'm pumped. I'm ready to get awesome videos made. So thank you so much for joining me. Let me know in the comments section down below your thoughts, your feelings, everything that you want to talk to me about, because I love communicating with you guys. Please do that right now. I'll see you next time, guys.